We talked about the reel bearings, so I don't want to get into reel bearings and backlapping. So let's stick strictly with grinding. We're going to look at this one first. If I'm going to grind with this machine, or that machine or that one, the most important thing that you're looking for in any grinder is parallelism between the stone that's grinding and the reel itself. I want my stone to be parallel up and down and forward and back to the reel. So I want my reel and my stone exactly parallel. If the stone is headed off at an angle up or down or coming in and out, I'm going to cone shape my reel. And that's the worst thing you can do to a reel, and it's the easiest thing to do in grinding, unless you're careful. So how we're going to check to make sure, we first put the reel in. And you can kind of put the reel in at any angle, and there's differences in grinders. This particular reel sits on the far side of the stone. There's reel grinders like the purple one there. The stone sits underneath. The reel sits on top. The stone comes from the bottom. The Dual Express, the stone comes from the bottom. I've seen pictures of older ones where the reel sits underneath and the stone comes from the top. That doesn't matter. The concept is I want to have a parallel reel to grinding stone. So the tool that we're going to use on this one is this setup here. We're going to use a dial indicator, and we're going to use that center shaft. And I want to check up and down and forward and back. And so what you do is you run the rod in, and you adjust this thing up. And you run the rod in and out until it just touches the top of that center shaft. And when it just touches it, then you pull it out, you slide it down to this end, you shove the rod in, and you want it to just touch the top of the reel, the center shaft. If it doesn't, let's say it's really high at this end and it's touching at this end. What I would do is the bar that goes down the center that this whole thing's attached to, you would lift it up. It pivots at that end, and you adjust it at this end. There's a lock, right? So I'd loosen the lock up, and then I would either lift it or lower it. In the example that I gave you where it's high at that end and touching down here, I would have to lower it. So I would simply lower this and drop the reel down. And I would keep doing that. I would check it, and I would lower it. And I'd check it and lower it until it just touches and just touches. When it's done, then you're parallel up and down. That could take 15 to 20 minutes, depending on experience and how careful you're paying attention to things and just how it works. When you're done, then you would lower this reel back down, or the adjusting bracket back down, and you adjust it until the rod runs right into the very center of that shaft. So you have a shaft, and it hits right in the center. You don't want to be high or low, you're right in the center. So you go to the center, you lock the nut, and then that's where this dial indicator comes into play. So you put this thing in, you read what the dial indicator says, you pull the shaft out, you slide it down, slide it in again, and you read the dial indicator. If the two numbers don't match, let's say that this end of the reel is further away, I need to parallel it by bringing it in.